Hi, good day. My name is Kyle and today we will be covering the topic of pronouns of the English language. Now, what is a pronoun? Pronoun is one of the 8 parts of speech found in the English language. Today we'll start off simply by giving you the definition of pronouns. Firstly, pronouns are basically words used to replace a noun in a sentence. Now, you remember that a noun is the words used to describe the subject, the items, things, people, or places or buildings in a sentence. And a pronoun replaces a noun within said sentence. Now, the pronoun is also used to refer to subjects and or objects in a sentence in the place of a pronoun. Now, today we'll cover the 8 different types of pronouns. Number 1, the personal pronoun. Number 2, possessive pronouns. Number 3, reflexive or intensive pronouns. Number 4, relative pronouns. Number 5, interrogative pronouns. Number 6, demonstrative pronouns. Number 7, indefinite pronouns. And finally, the reciprocal pronoun. So let us begin. Firstly, the personal pronoun. What are they? Personal pronouns are used to refer to specific persons, people, or things. They take several forms such as I, me, you, us, and so forth. Now, these are the most common types of pronouns you find in the English language that are used every single day in your life. There are 3 main roles of the personal pronoun. They identify the person who are speaking, in this case the first person. They also identify the person being spoken to, the second person. And finally, they identify the person or object being spoken about, the third person. Here's a chart that displays the 3 different perspectives of the personal pronoun, both in singular and plural form. In the first person, you use the I for the subject, the me for the object, we for plural, and us for the object. In the second person, you use the you for the subject and you as well for the object. Same goes for the plural in second person. In the third person, singular subject uses the he, she, or it, whereas him, her, or it is used in the object sentence. And finally, you use they in third person plural and them in the third person plural. Here are some examples for personal pronouns in their full sentence form. John and he are here. Now, John is a noun and he is a pronoun. In this simple sentence, he is part of the compound subject and is therefore nominative. And therefore, you use he as it is part of the subject in a sentence. Now, the second example, before she left the building, she closed the window. Now, the nominative case is used in both instances here. She refers to the subject of the sentence, and therefore you use it to replace whatever the noun, that is, the character of this sentence. Another example, Bill gave her a new wristwatch. Now, Bill, the noun, is the subject of this sentence. Her is the direct object of the sentence and is therefore the objective form of a pronoun. And therefore, you use her in the second person pronoun. I took the seat next to him. In this sentence, I is the subject and him is the object of the preposition, and therefore you use him in this sentence in replacement of a noun. Moving on, the second type of pronouns that we will cover today is the possessive pronoun. Possessive pronoun is incredibly simple to understand. It basically depicts ownership. When someone owns an object, you use the possessive pronoun to describe the relationship between the 2 subjects. Sometimes they are used as determiners or adjectives, and other times possessive pronouns act alone. This chart here displays the different types of possessive pronouns in first, second, and third person in both its singular and plural form. In the first person, you use the adjective of my and the noun mine for singular. For plural, you use our and ours. For second person, your and yours in singular, and the same goes for in its plural form. Whereas the third person, his, her, or its are used in the singular form. In its plural form, you use their and theirs for the third person possessive pronoun. Now remember that I mentioned that possessive pronouns can be used as an adjective, determiner, or can stand alone. Now an adjective, as we know, modifies the noun. For example, bike modified with the possessive pronoun your becomes your bike, referring the bike as belonging to someone. Now, in the possessive pronoun that acts alone, it is substituting a noun, such as you ride your bike and I will ride mine, referring to the bike that belongs to me or the other person. My favorite teacher likes lemon. In this sentence, the pronoun my is the first person possessive. She lives in her house, we live in ours. In this example, her is the determiner and our replaces the noun house. Moving on, we will cover next the reflexive or intensive pronouns. What are they? Now, reflexive and intensive pronouns refer to the subject of the sentence or the clause. Usually, this pronoun typically ends with the word self in singular or selves in plural. In this chart displayed on the slides, I am displaying the singular and plural form of the various reflexive intensive pronouns. Now, in the case of I, you use myself. In the case of you would use the reflexive yourself. In the case of he, you would use himself. She, you would replace with herself. It, you would replace with itself. For the plural form, we will be replaced with ourselves. You will be replaced with yourselves, and they will be replaced with themselves. Now, in the case of the reflexive pronoun, a reflexive pronoun indicates that someone did something to or for himself. For example, the avid gardener bought himself a new hedge clipper. Himself, the pronoun used, depicts what the gardener, the subject, did for himself. In this case, he bought himself a new hedge clipper. An intensive pronoun emphasizes the noun or the pronoun to which it refers to. Now, typically, in an example such as this, the restaurant manager himself served the coffee. You will find that in the case of intensive pronouns, the pronoun usually comes right after the noun or the pronoun itself. Now, himself refers back to the manager of this sentence. Moving on to the next topic, relative pronouns. Now, relative pronouns relate the subordinate or dependent clause to the rest of the sentence, basically connecting clauses together. They are used at the beginning of the subordinate clause to relate the subordinate clause to the main clause. I'll explain this further. Most of the time, relative pronouns include who, whom, whose, that, and sometimes which. Now, who is always used when referring to people. Who is used when the relative pronoun is the subject of the clause. Now, whereas whom is always used when the relative pronoun is the object of a verb or preposition. Now, you have to be careful when applying these two. They are tricky, and therefore you must know the clear difference. Who is always used as the subject, and whom is always used for the object. And finally, whose is used to show possession. Three different ones, but very similar in their use. For example, Patty is the person who never complains. Who never complains refers back to the subject, which is Patty. In this case, Patty is the subject, and you therefore use the subject relative pronoun who. Moving on, Allison is the person with whom Betty is comfortable with. Whom is the object of the preposition with in this sentence. Now, whom refers not to the subject, Allison, but to the object, Betty, in this sentence. Now, in the case of the relative pronouns that or which, when referring to things, you would use these two. Always use that or which when referring to objects, inanimate objects. Who, whom, and whose, remember, are always used for people and people only. In speech, people frequently make the error of using that or which with people, and you should do well to avoid these errors. Now, for example, her favorite pet store that carried exotic birds was closed on Sundays. Now, that begins the subordinate clause and refers to the favorite pet store of the subject, her. The store was located in the mall, which opened in 2002, which connects the subordinate clause, opened in 2002, to the main clause, the store was located in the mall. We come to our next pronoun, which is the interrogative pronoun. As the word suggests, interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions or interrogate. Now, they include who, whom, which, whose, and what. Now, for example, who would like a cookie? This is a very simple sentence. Who is an interrogative pronoun used to ask the question of who is the person who likes a cookie. The second example, to whom are you speaking? In this example, whom is the direct object and takes the objective. You is the subject of the sentence, and therefore it takes the subjective, creating a sentence asking whom was the subject speaking to. Demonstrative pronouns are used to identify a specific person, place, thing, or even ideas or concept. These pronouns can be used either as determiners in front of a noun or in place to replace a noun. They can be singular or plural and usually includes these four words: this, that, these, and those. Here are some examples of how demonstrative pronouns are used. The first one, this shoe is dirty and those need shoelaces. Now, this shoe refers to a specific pair of shoes, whereas those is used to replace the subject shoe without having to repeat it again in the later sentence. The second example, that plant needs watering, these need sunlight. Now, the difference between this and that is in proximity. This is used to refer to objects that are closer. That is used for objects that are further away. Those are used for objects that are further. These are used for objects that are closer in proximity. In the case of this sentence, that plant needs watering, referring to a specific plant in a distance away that requires watering, and these used to replace a plant in close proximity which needs sunlight. Now, the next item on our list is known as the indefinite pronoun, and as the word suggests, indefinite pronouns are used to refer to unspecified nouns, such as these words: anybody, anyone, everybody, everyone, nobody, and etc. Now, these indefinite pronouns, you have to remember, are all singular, and therefore it also means that gender must be determined by using pronouns such as his or her. Here are some examples for how indefinite pronouns are used in a sentence. The first one, each of the men takes his trash to the curb. Now, notice here that each of the men refer to a male gender, and therefore the pronoun his is used to specify the gender in this sentence. The second example, no one brought her jacket to school. Her is a singular pronoun for the antecedent no one, referring to a female subject, of course. Moving on, we come to reciprocal pronouns. This is our last topic of the day. Reciprocal pronouns are used when each of two or more subjects are acting in the same way, using the same action or verb towards each other. It is also used when an action is basically reciprocated. Now, there are only two reciprocal pronouns, each other and one another. Here are some examples. The first one, John and Mary love each other. Now, John and Mary are the subjects of this sentence, and the action here being reciprocated between the two of them is the verb love. The second example, the gangsters were fighting one another. Now, the gangsters here is a plural subject, multiple gangsters in the sentence here, fighting one another, reciprocating the verb of fighting themselves, each other. So we've come to the end of today's topic. let me just do a short recap. We've covered 8 different types of pronouns today. The first one, personal pronoun. Then we moved on to possessive pronouns, talking about ownership. Reflexive and intensive pronoun, referring to pronouns where actions are repeated upon the subject itself. Relative pronouns. Interrogative pronouns, used to ask questions. Demonstrative pronouns. Indefinite pronouns. And finally, reciprocal pronouns. Now, once again, what is a pronoun? A pronoun is a word used to replace the nouns in a sentence. Now, it is usually used to refer to subjects and or objects in the sentence in the place of nouns. So that's it for today's class on pronouns. Thank you very much.